Before I knew what this plant was, all I knew was that it was a pretty flower and it was also a weed that was taking over half my garden every spring. And I would yank it out and I would be kind of annoyed at how hard it was to yank out, but I would also feel guilty about yanking out all the pretty flowers. Luckily, I found out that this plant also has many medicinal and edible uses. And so now I can cultivate the flowers as part of my garden rather than trying to eradicate them. This is the common violet, aka the wild violet, and it is actually native to North America. It has been widely used as food and medicine for many years, and it's also one of the very first flowers to bloom in spring, which makes it really valuable to pollinators who have just woken up and desperately need a snack. To identify the wild violet, we'll start with the leaves. The leaves are heart-shaped, and they also are all on their own stems, their own stalks coming from the center of the plant. More iconic and recognizable, though, than the leaves is, of course, the flower. I have two different colors of flower here, but they both have the same general characteristics. They are blue to purple and white in color, and they also each have 5 irregular petals. The leaves and the flowers are both edible raw or cooked, but the roots are not edible and those should be avoided. The common blue violet is native to North America, and it'll most commonly be found in the eastern half of the United States and Canada. This plant really likes shady locations, and so the side of my garden that is adjacent to the tiny wooded area that I have tends to have the most of these wild violets. A common lookalike is the European violet, sometimes known as the sweet violet. This violet is more well known around the world, especially for its medicinal value, and because of that, it has been introduced in much of the US. Telling these violets apart can be quite difficult. They look very similar, but the easiest way to tell the difference is the telltale sweet scent of the sweet violet, as opposed to the mild or non-existent scent of the common blue violet. The good news is, if you can't tell these apart, it's okay. They are essentially interchangeable as far as edibility and medicinal value. However, there are a couple of lookalikes that are toxic. For one, there's the lesser celandine, which is known as fig buttercup, and this one has leaves that are similar to a violet. However, the flower is very different. It is yellow and vibrant with 8 to 12 petals as opposed to the 5 that are on the violet. The other really common toxic lookalike is the kidney leaf buttercup, but this one also has yellow flowers. So as long as you're waiting for your violets to bloom, you're not going to make this mistake. Violets are steeped in myth and lore. In Greek mythology, it is said that Persephone was picking violets when Hades kidnapped her and took her to the underworld. Violets are also associated with tears across many mythologies. In Greek mythology specifically, it's said that Zeus fell in love with a nymph called Io, and fearing the wrath of his wife, as he should, he turned her into a grazing animal. And the nymph cried because she was so upset having to eat the really tough grass. And so Zeus took her tears and turned them into violets so that she could eat them. And in Christianity, violets are said to have sprung from the tears that Adam shed upon having to leave the Garden of Eden. Traditionally, in Europe, this plant was a well-known cough, cold, and sore throat remedy. European recipes also mention using a syrup made from the flowers as a laxative in infants and young children. When it comes to the violets that are native to the Americas, it's said that the indigenous people used them for a whole host of things, including joint pain, fever, and indigestion, as well as the common European uses of colds and cough and sore throat. I recommend harvesting violets only in the early spring when they are flowering in your area. For the warmer areas like me, they can start flowering as early as February, and right now it is the end of March and they are all in full bloom. Remember, the flowers, leaves, and the stems are all edible, and so you don't have to worry about getting too much stem when you're harvesting. But the easiest thing to do is to just gently pluck off the leaves and the flowers. You can use tiny little clippers if you want. I just use my fingernail to go ahead and break the tender stem. Beyond its medicinal properties, wild violet has a whole host of culinary uses. The leaves are high in vitamin C and vitamin A, so similar to spinach, it makes a really nutritious addition to salads. Older, tougher leaves or dried leaves can also be used as a thickener for soups. The flowers also make a really lovely tea. They're very mild flavored, and personally I like to add them in with my other tea blends because they are so mildly flavored. But if you make a tea of them on their own, they turn the tea this beautiful aquamarine color. Another common use of the flowers is to make syrups, and a lot of people will then turn around and use these syrups to make a lot of sweet dishes. I've seen sweet sugars made, colored sugars made. I've also seen people use them in all sorts of baking. I've seen people make wild violet cookies and wild violet brownies. The recipes seem to be fairly endless. And then of course the flowers are edible raw, so they make a beautiful garnish for pretty much anything you can think of. I'm actually going to go pick a few right now, and I'm going to candy them to use as a garnish on my friend's cake for his birthday coming up. If you'd like to see which weed I'm planning to cover next and be able to ask me questions about it before I make the video, think about joining my Patreon. Starting at just $1 a month, you can see the community polls. You can also get ad-free access to these videos early before they go live. And then at the higher tiers, you can also earn some really cool benefits like an exclusive sticker and also access to my private Discord group where you can chat with me and other gardeners kind of one-on-one and get ideas and feedback for your garden. If you'd like to learn more about joining my Patreon, check out the link below this video. I'd love to know if you have any personal uses for this plant. I know that a lot of these native medicinal plants, there are families that have uses for them going back years and years that don't even get talked about on the internet. So if you or your family has used this plant before, I would love to hear your stories. Leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening.